In this episode of the Business of E-commerce, I talk with Jamie Davison about the road to a $100 million a year Amazon seller. This is the Business of E-commerce, episode 39. Welcome to the Business of E-commerce, the show that helps e-commerce retailers start, launch, and grow their e-commerce business. I'm your host, Charles Pulaski. I'm here today with Jamie Davison. I'm talking with Jamie about his experience starting and growing the Amazon business up to $100 million a year. So hey Jamie, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, Charles. Appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, thank you very much for coming on. Definitely talked to a few folks about Amazon, and it seems like that's one of the quickest ways to kind of ramp up a very large scale e-commerce business. I hear a lot of good things. So are you mainly working on FBA, or can you tell me a little bit about what you're doing?
Yeah, we put almost close to 100% of all of our focus towards Amazon and towards FBA. It's not to say all of our business. We do have a decent about 10% of our business that does exist off of FBA, and we also have a percentage of the business that works on other platforms as well too, like Walmart.com and our own website. But in terms of what we focus on and what we really put most of our, as an organization and company, and where we focus to grow, it's really through Amazon FBA, and that's where we've seen our largest growth.
Okay, so then about how long have you been doing this for? What's kind of
since around 2011 is when we first began.
And began working with Amazon, or just kind of began in e-commerce in general?
Yeah, I mean, really with Amazon then, I mean, before then, and I've got two business partners, Jason and Brad, we're all here in Atlanta. We talked about Jason he was doing a little bit in retail arbitrage before that, and going out on Black Friday, purchasing goods and reselling them back, 2009, 2010. So beforehand, but in terms of really focusing on the business of e-commerce, really 2011.
Okay. So that's when you really got into e-commerce and started going to FBA at that point, or was that still early on?
No, not FBA then, because it wasn't available back then.
Oh, yeah.
So we got going just straight from. So Jason and I were next door neighbors, and we really began out of his garage with a lot of cell phone case inventory sitting there.
I feel like that's the way a lot of people got started back in those days. Cell phone cases and accessories. People were just like buying them like gangbusters. I think a lot of eBay type stuff. eBay was kind of the big thing then, right?
Yeah. That's absolutely.
Okay, so then so today you're doing 100 million plus, somewhere in that?
Yeah, I mean, last year we did like a little over 75 million, but this year we're going to blow past 100 this year. We've got we launched some new brands, but primarily we've always said two primary brands that account for the large percentage of our revenue, but with lots of SKUs within those brands. But so we're growing really quick this year, and we're on pace to go by well past 100 million this year.
Okay, so can you explain a little bit about what you're doing? Because when people say FBA selling on Amazon, there's a lot of different things that could, like, and you mentioned retail arbitrage, and everyone kind of has their like own version of like how they even define that. So what is your process? What are you actually doing to get to that?
Yeah, sure. Great point to take a step back. So
yeah, take a step back, because it's funny. Everyone says like drop shipping or Amazon or all these terms, and then you start digging into it and you're like, we're not even talking about the same thing. So
true. So for us, in terms of fulfillment by Amazon, what we do is we do have a warehouse. We have a 25,000 square foot warehouse here in Atlanta. But the purpose of that warehouse is really we stage product there before we ship it to all the Amazon warehouses. We also fulfill the orders that are not focused on it, fulfilled by Amazon. So we have orders from our own website, these other e-commerce sites. Sometimes if people on Amazon.com order things internationally, and we fulfill them directly, but that's all us. It looks, it is large, the warehouse, and lots of product, but you really can't understand, or it's hard to visualize how much of our product is actually at Amazon, because Amazon has numerous warehouses across the country. And for those that don't know, FBA stands for Fulfilled by Amazon, where Amazon essentially handles everything for you. They tell us where to ship the goods, which warehouses, so they store them, they They manage the inventory. They're going to fulfill the orders. When the orders come through, they're going to handle all customer service related issues to that order, and as well as any returns for that. And then they also offer, as most people are familiar with, Amazon Prime. So when you're shipping fulfilled by Amazon, they handle it. And so usually when the customer can buy it, they are offered Amazon Prime, which they can get it, at least 2 day shipping, sometimes faster. And Amazon will space your inventory around the country. They'll kind of strategically place it in different parts, the East Coast, West Coast, wherever it needs to be, so they can get the goods to the customer as quickly as possible. So that really helps. When we started selling FBA, it really helps the ability to scale the business, because, if you have the right product, and I'm sure we'll talk some more about this stuff, but just the ability, if you get some things right, a big part of it in terms of how to actually source and execute was handled for you. And it helps a ton. Just, Amazon has all these criteria and things you have to do right as a seller to maintain certain status as a seller. And the nice thing, when Amazon FBA, when they're handling so much of it, you're pretty much assured that your seller stats can be really good in all those areas, because Amazon, which is fantastic in making sure they fulfill all the orders, so forth. So there's a lot of benefits. I'm sure we'll probably touch on some other things around it, but Amazon FBA for us has been huge for us to scale from probably a few $1 million business all the way to where we're at today.
Yeah, it's one of those things. Things like getting back, like the tracking data, things like that. You have to do it in a certain time frame, and by outsourcing the logistics to them, it's now their responsibility. So they they can't ding you if it's their responsibility to do. So that helps.
Exactly. Like we've had times, let's say like in Canada, we have Amazon. You can sell in different countries. That's the other beauty of the FBA. You can scale to other countries, but at times when we've handled it ourselves, you've just got to be on top of everything. And whether it could be because, in our case, it's usually because we have so much going on that we've had slippage, and we've had if there's an issue with a return or something and you're not on it, you can really get dinged, and you run the risk of being penalized by Amazon, or even being kind of suspended temporarily for them until you fix the issues.
Yep. Okay, so when you say you're using the Atlanta warehouse for staging, where are the products coming in from? Is it domestic or international?
Yeah, for us it's all international. So we're primarily in the wireless cell phone accessory space, which is really competitive on Amazon. We have a team in Shenzhen, China. So we have a large team now, given the size of our business. We have about 200 people over there, and that's just in our business offices, not warehouse or anything. And then we have manufacturers that we have long relationships with in terms of our products, and we have one factory that we have a joint venture with that we own partly, but again, we use multiple manufacturers. So all that is being shipped over from China. And often it's going right to Amazon, so it's not like it doesn't always come to us here in Atlanta. A lot of times it's going right to. It just depends on the inventory needs and where we're at with things, and where we ship stuff. But a lot of times we're going directly to the Amazon warehouses.
Wow, so you stored a lot there. So you said have a joint venture with a factory in China. What is that like? I feel like that's a very advanced move, though.
Yeah, it was interesting, because of the amount of cell phone cases that we produce, there was a bit of an opportunity.
So I didn't even ask about the products. The cell phone cases kept going from 2011, just.
Oh yeah. So we're one of the largest sellers on Amazon. We're when we meet with Amazon, we're the number one or number two sellers on Amazon in the cell phone accessory space. So which is it's a very competitive category. It's the most competitive.
Yeah, I feel like I said, that a lot of people got started there in 2011, but it sounds like you guys just stepped on the gas and kept it going.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we kept going. We basically acquired another small. At the time, we were both small. Another small brand. A couple years in, we merged. That's why we have two brands that are both really within the cell phone space. They're both similar, and they both we've grown both of them. But yeah, so within the space, we're definitely one of the largest players in that space, and that's what we're primarily good. Now we've added some new categories and products just in the last 2 years, primarily, and we're still in the early stages relative to our cell phone accessories. and growing. But yeah, no. So we've kind of gone all in there, and I'm sure, like I said, we can talk a little bit more about the specifics around it. But yeah, that's what our focus is, really, to sell through there and primarily through Amazon. But yeah, the manufacturer was, it was an opportunity where it's one of those opportunities that came up where they were struggling a little bit financially in terms of who they're fulfilling orders, the amount of demand they had, and we had a need. We had built in demand. We knew what much we need, so we could position them as, hey, we need, if we do a deal here, we can kind of guarantee X amount of orders because we know it. Yeah. So even though we still rely on our other manufacturers, because it's a relatively smaller factory, but it helps on our end, and it's kind of one of those win-win situations because they do a good job with us, and then we know we're going to have the demand for it, so we make some cell phone cases there.
Okay, that's not a move you hear about very often, so I like that. It's now? Are you okay to disclose the two brands, or is that something you don't talk about?
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, for us, it's like we don't go out of our way to disclose it, but we don't have a problem either way. It's called iBlazon. So if you look at I-BLASON.
Is that E-Y-E or just I? Letter
I? Just I, yeah, BLASON. And there's also Supcase, which is just SUP case.
Okay.
So one word as well. So those are the two ones you'll see us kind of all over Amazon. And it's a big one. We have some, again, we have some other brands from other products that are smaller, and hopefully they'll be growing into a good size like we have our cell phone accessory brands. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you place these big orders in China. I'm assuming these have got larger over time, obviously, right? Come over here in Atlanta, ship them into FBA, and then kind of distribute them from there, right? That's kind of that's the basics of what we're talking about. And then you sell some on Walmart, some on your own site. So you have some
eBay. Yeah. We have like 20 different channels. I mean, there's a bunch of other sites, but we have one person that manages kind of the sales of all that. And then we have logistics teams both in China and in the US here to help coordinate it all.
Okay. What's the percentage you'd say from Amazon versus everything? Amazon versus non-Amazon sales?
Yeah. So what's the percentage? You're asking, like, what's the margins? Is that?
No. What's the I mean, if you want to talk about the margin, that's fine. But I was more thinking, what's the pie on how much of the pie is Amazon versus how much of the pie is everything else?
Yeah, sure. So Amazon, if you're selling via FBA or not FBA, if you're just selling on Amazon, Amazon takes 15% of the selling cost for the marketing fee. Yep. All right. So that's just, it doesn't matter whether you're fulfilling it yourself or there. So they're going to take 15% of what you sell it for. And then from there, they're going to have, if you're selling FBA, then they're going to have their fulfillment fee. And that depends on the size and the weight of what they're doing. You can just do a Google search, whatever. You can go to Amazon FBA calculator. There's also Chrome extensions where any product on Amazon, it will automatically tell you what that fee is for that product. So, that may be, again, it may be, if you're selling an item for, let's say $20 on Amazon. So that's what, $3 for marketing fee. You may have another, $6 in fees for fulfillment. So you may take it down to, $11. And then, at Amazon platform, you've got their PPC, their pay-per-click marketing platform, or you may spend money somewhere else to drive traffic to Amazon. So that, then you have a marketing fee you got to back out. And then you still got to accommodate for your cost of your goods and your shipping costs, et cetera. So that kind of, works your way backwards. That's towards your margin. But essentially, that first chunk is, the Amazon piece. And, you want to make sure, of course, you pick a product and you got to get that model right to make sure there's room for those fees. Of course, if you fulfill it yourself, you don't have to pay those fees. But the trade-off is that, you got to fulfill it yourself. And, depending how good you're at it, and it's a little bit more difficult to scale. And there's, Amazon does reward naturally. They're incentivizing people to use FBA. So they're going to have, some preferential treatment for those listings that are Amazon FBA, including the Amazon Prime 2-day shipping as well too.
Yep. Now, you said picking a product. If someone's listening right now and they're thinking, this is great, this is something I'd love to do, but obviously, okay, now it's 2018. Someone trying to catch up, someone saying, "Hey, I'll do cell phone cases," might not be the best idea. And like starting out, that was probably a great thing to start, 2011. But now 2018, they're probably not going to catch up. It's a tough competitive landscape. So unless you've already, scaled up to 70 plus million, they're probably not able to catch you at this point. So they're going to have to find some other market, some other product category, and say, okay, the big guys like yourself aren't there yet. People aren't really looking at this. What would you recommend people do to start saying, hey, I want to do what you did, but I just can't fall down the path. I can't do cell phone casing in 2018. What do I do? What do I do now?
Yeah, great question, Charles, and you describe it. Yeah, and I agree with all the components of the question too, which is, sometimes people ask it because we do coaching and mentorship with and offer some services with our Amazon business now too. And people say, "Oh, why would you want to help people out with it? And aren't you worried about competition and so forth?" And we are worried about the competition, but not from people that we're teaching or people listening. Just to your point, I mean, we have big competitors already, and the competition is kind of brutal in this big space because there's lots of money at stake. But as you described in your question, that business, you could get into it, but it would require a lot of capital to get into it because you've got to compete with fairly big brands, right? So ourselves, a company like Anchor, there's some just big players in the space. Speedgen is another big provider in the space. So, I mean, you're going to go against, in this case, you're going to have to go in and spend a lot of money. If you're going to go out and spend a few $1,000s on cell phone cases and go at it, you're going to think Amazon doesn't work and there's not a good opportunity because you're going to just, most likely you're not going to succeed unless you have something really creative or unique to add to the space, right? Which is pretty tough because we have 2,000 SKUs and we've got a design team and we've got, all these resources. But, it could happen if someone came up with something unique and you've got it great. Like you got this great idea that fits. But that's not really, the point. It's not really that important. You don't need to sell. I mean, there's, you think about what you buy on Amazon. It's like, well, as a consumer, you buy anything on Amazon, right? So there's so many things you can look at and there's always new things, right? I mean, 10 years ago, well, shoot, I mean, the iPhone came out, I think in 2007. Right. So, I mean, there wasn't even, cell phone cases didn't even exist before, 11 years ago or something. Right. So the industry didn't even emerge. And so there are still first of all, there's new industries emerging just with, the growth of technology and everything else. That's one thing. But really what you're kind of doing is looking at what we teach people is to find spots. You say there's riches and niches and, to find things that there's opportunity, that there is demand for. We don't recommend people try to go on Amazon and create a market because there's massive, so much of I think half of e-commerce searches start on Amazon, and with that that kind of tells you, that data kind of tells you, okay, this is what people are interested in, and unless it's something like is really up and coming or it's an emerging market, you basically can find things that are maybe still growing, but they're early stages and it's smaller right now, but it's an opportunity where you can get in there and compete and do all the same things we did. Now, you're not going to grow it to a $20 million business right away, but you can easily hit 6 figures in the course of a year once you get it. And then from there, once you get to 6 figures on Amazon, we view it as like, geez, you can add a zero to it because the ability to 10x, a business on Amazon is very doable. I mean, definitely takes some time. It's not like you just throw stuff up there and you make easy money. But if you really treat it like a real business, you find a product where you feel, what I always talk about is you need to really look to add some kind of value to the marketplace. So it could be a small feature like the color or the type, but it just could be, how you put together products. It could be 2 products that make sense to go together. Like let's say it's swim goggles and a swim cap, and you put them together as a bundle, and other people really aren't offering that. There's lots of ways to think about it, but at its core, you just can't. You got to think about whatever you're doing and how you're adding some value to the marketplace that customers are going to buy, as opposed to purely throwing things off. But I mean, there's a lot more to it in terms. Nowadays, there's a lot more tools than we began, but there's more competition. But there's a lot of tools out there that you can help really research good products and get a good sense of what the demand and the what the demand of it is, and how much competition there is for that product with that demand. So ideally, you're looking for In a perfect world, of course, high demand with low competition. Realistically, you can find lots of things with medium demand and low competition. And, along those lines, those are the type of things you want to target.
Okay. So yeah, because you're hoping that you're going to find something that's same thing early on the cell phone cases. They were in 2011, more people were just getting cell phones. So either way, the pie itself was getting larger every year. Just more cell phones, more people needed cases. The people that bought their cell phones in 2007 broke their case, replaced it. So just like more people needed them. So the market itself was growing. So the demand was also just, the rising tide was raising all the ships at the same time. And then plus you guys became a player in that, so it moved you up.
Yeah, yeah, and most people don't. I mean, we have a large company, so now we have 200 in China. We've got another about close to 40 here in Atlanta. So it's become kind of, we have a large payroll and all that stuff. Most people that we're working with aren't necessarily trying to build that. Matter of fact, the numbers are probably, it's almost, it doesn't even, it means more probably to say someone's doing 5 million on Amazon or 10 million because that seems more attainable. The reality is, there will be plenty of new businesses that grow into big companies. There's kind of a separate set of skills that take over to get from 20 million to 100 million. But what we're talking about in terms of the early stages, you don't need something, you don't need to have the perfect storm of, iPhones being invented to get there. I mean, there's lots of things out there that people are doing really well. I was in New Mexico last week helping a young CEO, 25-year-old. He runs this company called Lady Boss, and they do 4 million a month selling supplements, pretty much, not on Amazon, off of Amazon, but he got onto Amazon. He's doing about 300,000 a month, and we're out there. He really doesn't even know what he's doing that much. We went through everything, but because he has a strong brand, they have a bit of a name there. They have a really strong following that, and that's a really competitive space too. Like I wouldn't recommend people going into, that's probably the second most competitive space.
Supplements, beauty products, those are the bloodbath of Amazon, right?
Yeah, a lot. But in his case, he's got a really big following already. So that's like the unique situation why he can get in there and do well. We've got a guy, and I'm not a beauty product expert or anything. There's a guy, I know we have one of our students does about 200,000 a month he sources products from Korea, I think in the beauty space. So it's, we learned, I guess the point is that we learn people all the time. We just do this one thing, but people sometimes get fixated on that product. But if, we brought on a bunch of us on here, or if I talked about it, there's so many people that do, totally different industries and products, but the methodology and the kind of the strategy is the same in terms of leveraging Amazon and, FBA and how you rank products and this, that, and the other, because all that's the same. It just differs by, the category and the opportunity and the competition level. And like I said, if you want to go into something more competitive, you can. Again, there's more money, you can grow faster, but just realize typically that's going to take more capital, as I mentioned. And sometimes in that scenario, you may want to partner with some people and potentially pool some investment because, you're gonna have to spend a little more money up front on the marketing and to really penetrate, that market as opposed to, all the categories where there's less competition.
What's kind of the minimum you would say investment? Let's say they've never done this, they just want to get into it, try something. What's kind of the minimum bar to entry right now? And we're not talking supplements, we're talking just general, products for some unique niche that, it's very low competition.
Yep. Yeah. So typically you're talking at least a couple $1,000s. So probably, $3,000 to, $5,000. What I would typically say is that whatever amount you invest in your inventory, so let's say you put in $2,000, I would do that amount times 2.5. Be my general thing about the amount of money you should have. So if you have 2,000, if you 2.5 and an exit, that's around 5K. Just because you're gonna have things like your shipping cost, as you're familiar with, of course, and then things like your marketing of your product early on. Like on Amazon, you can they'll deduct the marketing cost from your sales, which is fine, but initially that first stage, there's a bunch of things we're doing right as we launch the product to spike the Amazon algorithm to get your sales, to get your product on page one. But through that period, I describe it a little bit like if you were doing a grand opening for a brick and mortar store. When you're first opening, you're discounting things a lot. You're giving away products. You're doing You may have a big cake and it's, may have the Chamber of Commerce at your local event. I mean, that's essentially what you're trying to replicate with your product online. You're trying to do a launch, and you're going to try to compete, and you want to make some noise. So you're going to do some things that are, in the short term aren't necessarily profitable. They're really kind of investments into the growth of that product. And then you get up there. So, the other thing I do say along that is, we don't spend crazy money when we're going into products for the first time ourselves. And I know, Charles, you and I were talking a little bit before around, there's different ways you could test products, right? But the same thing is, we don't like to waste money either. So we're not going to go out and spend 20 grand on a new product and think, oh yeah, we're just going to, we think this is going to work. But it's not, even though we're really experienced at this and how we go about things, still, we're not successful with products 100% of the time. Ultimately you need to see how the market responds or the competition relative to your product. So we go in, test it. We try to do a lot of homework up front to make, to really be smart with it. But, ultimately see it. Now we'll have more winners than losers in the product by a pretty good percentage. But even so, again, we're not, until we get to like the second order or third order, we're not going to scale up the investment into that product until we see that it's selling well.
So how much would you typically, so actually testing products is probably an interesting thing to talk about, right? Because a lot of people, like you said, it's hard to relate to say, yeah, we're doing 20 million here, 10 million of this, like those are numbers most people can't wrap, like, they're just very unrelatable numbers. And having 200 people in China, like you said, it's just very hard to picture, if you're, the dude in the garage right now, and you're, selling a few products here and there and you have your $5,000, it's tough to relate. But when you're saying you're testing products, that's probably a little more of something people can walk through and say, okay, let's follow that same process. So what's that process look like, and how much? So you said less than 20,000. So you're talking 5, 10,000, let's say, per product.
Yeah. I mean, it will be, and it's, our process isn't, dialed in for new products. It's not like it's perfect or anything, but we'll do. Let's say we take something in like the fitness category, right? Or we sell in pet supplies, right? So these are we put those under different brand names, right? So and Amazon loves brands nowadays too. So if I do recommend, some people just kind of do 1,000 different products and all different brands, all under one, or it could be all under one brand name. But what we like to do is build out brands. Like we said, we have our 2 big brands, and then fitness, we have a brand name for it. Pets, we've got a brand name, and Amazon does give you, as you get that the brand approved or trademarked, they give you special access in terms of additional photos you can do, different marketing tools you get than people that don't have brands. And Amazon feels better because they're not going to get sued or have issues by someone claiming they own the brand because this person's not trademarked, et cetera. So anyways, more and more, I'm a big brand person when I talk and teach about the business. So yeah, we'll pick under a brand. So let's just take the fitness category. We've got some products that we've got a handful of different products that we want to put together under that brand. We like to have related products because on Amazon, when you're shopping on it, it'll say people that bought this item also bought this other item, or it will say, show different things or different ads that people are running for related products. So you want, the more that your products can show up there, the better, because you can kind of kill 2 birds with 1 stone. But, along those lines, we will spend, further, we do the research using the software tools.
Yeah. So what's that research look like? So first product, you don't even, let's just say you don't even have a product, you have 0 products, and you're thinking, I want to do something in fitness. I just have no idea. Am I selling yoga equipment or kettlebells? Or, what does that first decision look like?
Yes. The first thing is, and this is where we start, when we're working with people, because most of the people we work with have not sold on Amazon before, but they have a good work ethic and they, have an entrepreneurial spirit. So it's like, and there's not one thing that's so complex, right? I mean, with this business that can do, it's just lots of little things and lots of, Amazon's kind of a beast in terms of how it works. And
yeah, that's a good point with this. None of it's like hard. There's a lot of things, but no one thing is actually particularly you have to have a PhD, and so it just
totally.
Yeah, you seem to know a lot of things, ranging from logistics to sourcing to advertising. There's just so many different components that have nothing to do with one another. The skill set for logistics and advertising have literally nothing to do with one another, but you need to be good at both.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, and again, the good thing is, in Amazon's case, they take a lot of it, they make a lot of it easier. They can reduce it, but you still need to, even if they're handling it for you, you still need to know enough to to understand what you need to follow up, what you need to look at. But yeah, so where we start with nowadays, and now we have a team that does this, and I'll go look at this, or if you were over my house, and sometimes I have buddies that are like, oh, how do I do this? And so we'll just pull up Amazon and we'll take a look. But really the tools, there's a couple major companies. There's one, amzproductspotter.com is our link to Jungle Scout. So Jungle Scout's one of the major players. The software tool, which is mostly product research. There's a couple of major companies, and they each have different, they're kind of competing with each other, right? So it's kind of personal preference what you prefer, but they were probably one of the first ones. They have a really cool Chrome extension that it overlays on Amazon. So any product you go to on Amazon, or any keyword of all the products, you hit that and it'll show you all the estimated sales per month for all the products on that page. It will tell you whether it thinks what we talked about earlier about the demand, the demand and competition. So it'll say, oh, this is high demand, high competition, or high demand, low competition. And they also have filter tools that you can look for, all different type of things and categories, everything you could imagine. They do that. There's a company, Viral Launch, that we use extensively for launching our product, but also they have their tool as far as researching product. There's all these other things like all the keywords you got to find, you're going to list your product with. But Viral Launch is really, really great as well too. So those are the two big ones. Actually, Viral Launch, I think we have it. If you go to like virallaunchdiscount.com, I think it gets you like 30% off on any of their tools. But those are the two best ones, because also the founders of those companies, Greg Mercer of Jungle Scout and Casey Gauss is like a rock star CEO of Viral Launch. We trust those guys a lot, and they're very data driven tools, and it helps. Now it's a plus and minus. Back in the beginning, those tools didn't exist, but now these tools exist, so it means more people have access to try to use these tools. So you got to be just be careful not to go anything that's, as we talked about earlier, with too much competition, because it's just going to be tougher. You can work your way up, like I said, that you get to that down the road, but initially you want to find categories. I'd say using those. It doesn't have to be those tools. So we have a gal that again we coach. She's out of New Zealand. She called us up, said she wanted the coaching, but she already sold her business for $1 million a couple years ago. And I was thinking, all right, what do you want? What do you think we can help you with? And her point was, well, she's really good at product selection. Like, she's in New Zealand. She goes to Thailand, and she goes to Vietnam. And I think she sold her business first business was a tea business. And now she's looking at like alpaca, something from alpaca, this wool from alpaca she's using. And it's like, wow, that's like stuff I never would have thought of. It probably doesn't show up on one of these tools. And what she wanted help with was all the other stuff we do in terms of, ranking the product and everything. But the point is like, wow, there's a big world out there. So in addition to the tools, sometimes you have like a connection or a friend or a family member. Like, someone reached out to me, was like, hey, I've got my sister-in-law is in Mexico with these, really cool shoes. And, if you do the research, see if there's a market for it. Then you can, anywhere from, just go with what the tools show you, and you can go source the product out of China. Or if you have some unique angle to a product, and we get this a lot. I get buddies all the time coming to me with me like, this guy does this product and you could help. And, there's all sorts of ways you can potentially get at, but you can just verify it. And then, then you can test it with doing some, initial order and see how well you sell the product.
So a lot, then, it sounds like basically starting off is just start generating ideas. Basically just do this like brainstorming session where you're using these tools. You're just checking your, hey, let's sell supplements, and you realize, okay, bad idea. And then and then you just kind of go through and let's look down the alpaca wall and go, oh wow, there's not many people, with alpaca products. I'm not even saying it right, on Amazon. That's just not a thing. Maybe we can compete there. Maybe for a few $1,000s we can get into this, test the market, and you find this. It's just coming up with ideas and really just brainstorming and looking and realizing that you're not going to sell yoga balls. Like, there's just too many of them on there already. You can't compete, but you might find this little stretching tool for yogis that people also want it, but there's only 3 sellers, and try to find products like that. And then from there, once you find that, what's kind of step 2 of, okay, now I have the product, I have an idea, I see there's 3 other people selling it online, but I want to sell it too. What do I do?
Yep. Yeah, and this is where I'd say my advice probably differs from a little bit more than what I've seen in the last few years. some people would say, hey, just find that product and go work to sell like 10 to 15 of those per day, and then go on to the next product, the next product, next product. What I would say is, before I go to the next step, I would kind of say, hey, is this product, can I see this product as something I could build a little bit of a brand around? And building a brand is nothing, literally on Amazon, you put the name on it. But really, whatever, I always say what that brand name is doesn't matter in terms of how cool it is. It can be like the lamest name in the world. What does matter is that you need a name that you can trademark. And so you can go to like uspto.gov, do a free search to make sure. Ultimately, you can get things like LegalZoom or a local attorney, whoever, someone helps with trademark to help research it. You can do a basic research.
I like how you said the name doesn't matter. That's one of those things people get so like hung up on.
Yeah.
Yeah. I always,
right. Yeah.
Yeah. It's one of the, like people are like, yeah, I've been working on the name for like a month. I'm like, okay, that's okay. we can do that in like an hour. Just the name is
totally
exactly.
Things, I mean,
it's binary, right? It's either not good or acceptable. There's no like, it can't be like really long.
Yeah. When you search on Amazon too, if you see like, I'm just using Amazon because this is what the product will be. If you search on Amazon, like on your phone, right, you get on there and you're like, I want a grill cover, and you go to grill covers and you're like, okay, this picture looks good. The price looks good. There's like X number of reviews, so it looks like it's a legitimate. Boom, you're not like, oh wait, it's called ZYF brand. There's very few products that really matter because there's all these private label brands, unless it's something like you're looking for Nike socks or I want the Disney blah blah blah. So unless you're like $1 billion brand, it really doesn't matter. But over time, like our brands,
hopefully the name just matches up with what you're buying, right? If you're looking for a grill cover and there's something with grills in the name, you start to say, okay, we're at least down the right path. But it doesn't need to be the perfect name or anything super unique.
But what is a big deal, like I said, if you can trademark the name, that's massive to you. Like I had a guy in our Facebook group. He started selling in September of 2016. And he just sold his business in July here, so less than 2 years. And he was talking about it with me, and that he sold it for a nice profit. He really knows how to, run his business well. He's very smart with the expenses, everything. But when he sold it, because one of them was trademarked, the brand, that was an asset, because the person buying it from him was like, all right, this is great. It's already trademarked. You're good to go, because that legwork up front really helps to get you going. But I guess the original question is, so one, I would take a look at that and see if this product that you sell, like, okay, if it was whatever it is, say, okay, yeah, this is cool. I could see myself building a little brand around, if it was wine accessories, I'll just pick something else too. Like, all right, we're going to do this one product in wine accessories, but with that, I could then maybe do a second or a third related product. And then I'm going to go like to Instagram or Facebook or, my community and go, yeah, we've got, we've run a small wine accessory business, and, here it is. And this is what it is. So then it's like, then, maybe you might sell it off of Amazon or whatever else. But the point is that you kind of stay within that realm for that brand. And that realm could be big, right? You don't need, you don't need a lot of brands and everything, but that's how I'd like to think about it, that, okay, yeah, I could see that, that realistically doing that. If you're like, no, I just want to sell this one product, then we're going to go sell something completely different and something different. There are people that do that. I just think it's very transactional. It's hard to sustain that, because you're not really established. Because over time, like, you'll have, people that buy your product that like it, that will come back and they'll say, oh yeah, we're going to buy, I'm going to buy something from this group of products, from this brand again. And keep in mind, nowadays on Amazon, there's all these additional features. Like they give people that are brand owners the ability to advertise their brand and list all their different products, where those that aren't, are not able to do that. So, but yeah, so that's kind of these are early stages. Like, we put a lot of emphasis on the product selection and, getting that part right, because that makes everything else easier. If you get the wrong, if you make a poor product selection, all the marketing stuff, everything else is so much harder. If you get the first part right, all the listing, even sourcing the product, which, we didn't go into that so much, but all that stuff becomes so much easier if you pick the right product to begin with.
Yeah, and I do actually want to make sure we ask about sourcing. I was looking at the time to make sure because that is something I feel like a lot of people also, they think it's so something they haven't done before, so they get so hung up on that. It's so, like, they just think, how will I ever do that? So, like, once you get through all these steps and you actually say, okay, I got it here's the product, I want to do this. What do you actually do to source the product? Like, how do you physically get the products from these manufacturers if you don't have connections over there? You haven't been to any trade shows with Chinese factories or overseas factories, let's say.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I mean, the beautiful thing in 2018 is like, and we find this not just with e-commerce, with everything, like everything is so much easier than it used to be, right? So nowadays, when you get into it, like once you get the initial knowledge, you go, oh, wow, there's, and as we said earlier, there's nothing extremely difficult, but you just have to have the right, get pointed in the right direction. But yeah, so Alibaba, a lot of people I'm sure have heard of Alibaba, and some people might wonder, like, what the heck does Alibaba actually do? But Alibaba.com is what Amazon is to consumers buying. Alibaba is a B2B place that matches people that want to buy things in large quantities to then resell from all over the world. But it's dominated by people, by manufacturers in China. So if you go to Alibaba.com, you can literally filter down by type in any product you want, filter through. You can look at there's called gold suppliers. So they go through pretty rigorous vetting to get certain tiers. So it's actually really safe and everything there. But anyway, that's where you start. You'll send them a note to like, hey, I'm interested. I'm an e-commerce seller. We don't really say, hey, just sell on Amazon. We're like, hey, we're in the e-commerce business. And they'll get back to you with an initial price. They'll list all the prices on there, but those are just a range. Don't take those into account. And then, yeah, you'll connect with them. A lot of them we use in China. If there's an app called WeChat, which is massive, but they run most of the economy through WeChat. They pay their bills, they order their taxis, everything through WeChat. But if you get WeChat, you can easily communicate with the manufacturers there. So we'll do that all the time. And they have people that speak English. Usually have an account rep that speaks English because they know they need to, and they're really good. For the most part, really good to deal with. They're going to try to develop a good relationship because they want to have. They don't want to do business with you one time. They want to do business with you multiple times and get, as you grow, that helps them grow their business. But that, kind of in short, that's what it is. You gotta find what you do too is from each of them. I guess the other important step is you can order a sample. So, the product, you'll get an order, hey, I want to get a sample of this. And you get over there. You can also order basically your competitor's product and mash the two up and see, all right, what's the quality here? Sometimes on a photo, it looks pretty good. Like this looks great. And then you get the sample, you're like, this thing's cheap, So, just don't take anything for granted. Make sure you get, your hands on the product. And once you get it, you'll just get like, all right, this looks good. Or you can say, hey, you can go back to them. Can you modify this? Can we do this? And they'll work with you to get underway. So that's, in short, that's kind of the initial steps to sourcing the product as well.
Okay. Yeah. I think people are always surprised on how much work goes into all that upfront. That from finding the products to actually figure out what you want to sell to sourcing them, like the percentage of the work that will be upfront is usually like way underassumed. I think a lot of people are trying to like rush through that process and say, okay, once we get the products on Amazon, then we're doing this. But they don't realize like in those steps you just said, that's where, I don't know what percentage of the work you would say, but it's almost like the majority of the work is in those steps. And then everything else, like you said, if you do that easy, it just, the other stuff, it's still work, but you'll figure it out. But like if you do those things, that's you're setting yourself up for success, I guess.
Totally. Yep, exactly. So I mean, some of the other stuff is just it's like it's like stuff. It's logistics, or it's not even. It's just tasks that I mean, really, the other one is just ranking the product is really important on Amazon because there's so much. Amazon is all keyword driven. So if you want to find a product, you're going to type in the search bar what your product is. So kind of on the latter end, there's bunch of techniques we do that to make sure your product gets the best shot of being shown on page one for each and every keyword for a product. And how you search for a term could be different than how I search for a certain product. There's all these variations, so you have all these opportunities to be ranked on page one for a given product. But yeah, that price is processed. Once you get the stuff in, then it can be like you're just maintaining it and making sure the inventory comes back in. And like you said, majority of that work is up front. When you get it to it and you've got, profitability coming in, then it's tweaking, or you maybe upgrade the photos, or, you're looking at different things to make it better. But, there's so much of it just happening. You just look at your phone and you're like, all right, we got this many sales per day. That's kind of the passive, the passive income part is part of that. But the reality is, there's a lot of, stuff you need to actually keep an eye and run your business.
Yep. I like that. All right, last question, and I didn't prepare you for this, but I think it's a good question. If one book recommendation that you'd say has kind of influenced you in this or your success or kind of set you on this path, what would you say?
Yeah. I like Russell Brunson's books. I think are good from ClickFunnels. We follow that a little bit. I got to get his. He's got 2 books out. I just want to get the ones out here.
Yeah, he's a few, and they've been over. There's some that are actually pretty old now. When you look back at some of the dates, and you realize like, wow, he has some recent ones, but also some older ones, right?
Yeah. I like it just for us because and I'll tell you why. The quick with it is because it's funny. I'll pull his up, and I'll tell you a little bit more too how we follow things, which is actually in this topic. The primary thing I actually do is I like to listen to a ton of podcasts too. So that's one we do. Just modern day learning. I probably do a little bit more on that side, but on that was the original one he had was the .com Secrets is the one from a couple years back. And that was interesting because that kind of ties in a lot to us for the even 2018, our business, a lot's on Amazon, but a lot of it has to do with social media in terms of using influencer marketing and other people to kind of promote your products and everything else. So for us, we kind of, I say not reinvented ourselves to the core, but we still have to like keep up with the latest things. So I know Russell Brunson, those books really helped us, but also kind of dial us into his community, which connected us with other entrepreneurs and see how they're doing things with other products. And sometimes it's e-commerce related, or sometimes it's e-commerce, but it's not on Amazon. And we're looking at that. So yeah, I would say Russell Brunson's his books, definitely were, and they're pretty straightforward, in terms of, how you go about it. But that's the biggest one. But the reality is, the way I would say I spend more of my time learning right now is probably podcasts. Which we're doing right here. But on the phone, I at the gym, or on the airplane, I just hit a few and I'll just listen away and take notes.
What would you recommend there?
Yeah. So there I would say there's social media. Social media marketing it used to be called social media marketing like world, but now it's called social media marketing. Is a really good one because he has different guests on all the time about. It could be about your LinkedIn profile and how to really leverage that LinkedIn in 2018 compared to, back in when you originally used it, or how to use live streaming, how to do, there's all these things that are just a wide range, maybe Facebook ads and video and doing, there's just a wide range of things that go on. And this applies to, e-commerce or really any business out there that, I enjoy just listening. Not every episode I'll just scroll through and like, oh, this looks interesting topic. And then I'll get a little notes section out of my phone and I'll take, as I hear a couple pieces that are really important or a website or something, I'll make sure I mark it down.
Awesome. All right. I will definitely link to those. That I feel like podcasts like we're doing right here, this is kind of the new learning on. You can talk to someone that's directly like actually doing it and hear their thoughts, their process. And it's not stuff that, somebody wrote 5 years ago in a book and it might be outdated now. It's actually like you're mentioning, WeChat, and that's something that's used today. That's a 2018 thing that's happening right now today that you're probably going to use like this week. So it's not, so you're not
every
getting,
day.
Yeah, every day, right? Well, you're not getting information that, oh, okay, yeah, you should go use, what's like AOL Instant Messenger to talk and realize like, oh, that doesn't exist anymore. So you're actually hearing stuff like that people are doing now and not stuff that used to work, which I think is like super powerful. So thank you for that.
Yeah, totally, Charles. Yeah, it's great. Yep.
Yeah, it's been great talking to you. So definitely, you sent over some links for the show notes. I'll definitely make sure to add those. So I definitely appreciate you coming on. This is super helpful.
Yeah, absolutely, Charles. It's been great. Enjoyed the conversation.